Hello, everyone. We will give everyone just a moment to join as it is letting people in.
Oh, there everyone is shooting up.
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
So why don't we see? It's already coming in. So for those people who are joining, on the bottom of your Zoom webinar, you will see a chat widget, a little chat widget. Feel free to pop that open and engage with us during this webinar. Already seeing some love for Ashley in there right out of the gate. So I think we should, yep, looks like, okay, so we've got a bunch of people in. We're gonna go ahead and get started. My name is Robertson. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Picmonic. And today for our Secrets to Success webinar, we are joined by Ashley Adkins. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so we're gonna be talking about 5 must-dos for your second year of nursing school, but I'm actually gonna ask Ashley to kind of rewind back in time in a minute and tell us about her entire nursing journey. We're gonna pack a lot into the next 30 minutes, but to cover a couple quick logistics, on the bottom of your screen, you will see that chat widget. Feel free to write in any questions, say hi. We will be getting to some Q&A at the end of the webinar. Also, we are going to be raffling off a free subscription. Ashley's going to be hooking everyone up with a discount, and we are recording this webinar. So if you have to drop off early, feel free to do so, and we will make the recording available after the fact. So why don't we dive in? Ashley, you and I have had the opportunity to meet previously, and I think a lot of your followers are here today. So Ashley Adkins, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, where you are currently, and then let's rewind back in time and talk about nursing school.
Yes, of course. So, okay, I'm Ashley Adkins. A lot of you probably, if you know me from my YouTube channel, Ashley Adkins RN. I started that YouTube channel back in nursing school, just kind of as an outlet for myself of just like, hey, this is what I did in my OB semester. This is how I'm studying for tests and whatnot. And it's really kind of developed this awesome community. But a little bit more about me. I've been a nurse for over 5 years now, which is just, it's mind blowing. You never think you're going to get there. And now I've been a nurse for 5 years. I did my first year just on a basic medical surgical telemetry floor. And then I've spent the last 4 years in the ICU. I'm located here in Arizona. I'm in a really big level 1 trauma hospital, big ICU, very busy, high acuity. I've learned tons. I've gotten to do tons of different therapies. I'm a preceptor. I've got my CCRN. I just graduated my master's less than a year ago, so did that. And now my most latest thing is I've been training to be a charge nurse in the unit I'm at. So this career of nursing has really just grown me so much, and I've grown with it, and it's been crazy and awesome.
Well, it's amazing, and congrats on the masters and just the progress and success over the last couple of years. As we all know, though, you know, the idea of becoming a nurse and actually becoming a nurse are two different things, right? Mm-hmm. The journey's not easy, whether it's a nurse, a doctor, a PA, an NP, it doesn't matter. Any aspect of healthcare professionals, there's a lot of information you have to learn. It's a difficult, stressful journey. So why don't we go back in time and tell us about your first year of nursing school, kind of starting and what that's like, what you did, or, you know, kind of the general idea of if you could go back in time and do it again, you know, what did you learn? What would you do differently?
For sure. I feel like I was very lucky going into nursing school. I was one of those people that knew, like, this is what I want to do. Like, I just was full-fledged invested in going for it. My first week in nursing school, I always tell this story. It's kind of funny. I literally almost quit my first week of nursing school, which is funny to look back on now, but in the moment, I just was so overwhelmed. I was so tired. I was so just like conflicted with, can I even handle all that was being thrown at me? I remember sitting in like my first lecture and this instructor going over your clinical schedule and your tests and your assignments. And I was like, whoa, I've got like 5 more classes and this is only one. Like, you can't be piling all this on me. And so I really questioned myself at that time, which I think is a very normal thing. And obviously I'm here to tell the story. I've got my RN, but that first year is tough. I feel like you're really just figuring out, how do I study for tests? How do I better prepare for exams? is nursing what I actually want to do now that you think you want to do it, and then you get into it and you're like, yeah, I've never put a patient on a bedpan before. Like, is this something that I really want to do for the rest of my life? But it's a whole learning experience, kind of getting that foundation that first year of the basic concepts of nursing and building on that as you go through.
No, it's fantastic. So when you, and thinking about that, why don't we dig deeper there? So when you talk about building some of the basic concepts and the foundations, right? Because even just learning the nomenclature is overwhelming, and then you've got to learn the drugs, the bugs, the diseases, right?
Yep.
It's so much. So between first and second year, what did you do, between going to classes, different resources you might have used? Tell me a little bit about the tools that you used, or ways that you studied, ways that you kept yourself organized.
I think the biggest thing that I did was, once I found something that worked for me as far as studying for tests, is I just ran with it. So for me personally, I had a really great set of friends that we would go to Starbucks and hang out there for like 5 or 6 hours, and we would quiz each other on the content. We would write our own NCLEX style questions for the test, and we would just quiz each other, go back and forth. For me personally, one of the biggest things that helped me study in my first year, and especially going into my second year when you're preparing for the NCLEX, was doing a ton of NCLEX style questions that were geared around the content that I was learning. So if I was in my OB semester, I would, just really focus on OB style NCLEX questions, because I knew, yes, going through nursing school, it's preparing me to be a nurse, but we're also preparing for a test, because if we don't pass that test, we can't become an RN. And so a lot of it is preparing for that test. And so that was one of my biggest things. And I still say this to this day, is doing tons of questions to review content that you're learning in nursing school, whether you're using Picmonic, which is a great resource for people for NCLEX style questions, or you're writing your own questions. But questions are one of the best ways, I feel, to test what you know, right? And
absolutely.
Yeah.
So did you actually start doing NCLEX style questions your first year?
I would say yes. I treated nursing school as if it was like a marathon,
right.
prepping for the NCLEX. So many people think, okay, I just need to get through nursing school. I'm going to do my first semester, do my second semester. I'm going to graduate, and then I'm going to start preparing for the NCLEX. But really, you should be preparing for the NCLEX your entire journey in nursing school. So, but start small. So your first semester, I would just start by doing, maybe 10 to 20 questions a couple times a week. And as I went through nursing school, especially getting into that second year, I increased the amount of questions. So I was basically like training my brain to be able to handle sitting down and taking, 200, 300 questions at one time. But I had built my way up to that. It's not like I just sat down and was like, all right, today I'm going to do 300 questions and that's going to be my studying, because you wouldn't retain anything. Your brain's not used to doing that many questions in one sitting.
Absolutely. That's phenomenal advice. And I think, one of the things that's really important there is a lot of schools don't actually use NCLEX style questions as far as their normal course exams. And so students will get closer to the NCLEX and then just start using like a UWorld subscription for a month before the exam. But if they haven't been practicing that style of question, select all that apply in some of those different style questions, it's really tough. So I think starting early and building up is absolutely great advice. What other tools or resources? Go ahead. You want to say something?
Oh, no, you're good. I kind of lost my train of thought of what I was going to say.
So what other tools? So you used obviously question banks. Were there any key books that you used? One of the people asked, was there a specific book that helped you with NCLEX questions?
I didn't use any like specific books, so to speak, for NCLEX questions. My biggest thing was just doing those NCLEX style questions through like apps, like Picmonic, which I don't even think Picmonic was around when I was in nursing school, or it was really beginning
early, right.
or really early. And so it's been awesome to see how like it's grown. And I wish I would have had it in nursing school, because it's right up my alley as far as the way information is presented and the way the amount of like content and material you have access to. I think one of my favorite features in regards to books, I just love how you have all the nursing school books on there. And I wish that was something that I would have had, because I'll be honest, I did not like reading my nursing school textbooks. I would not, I never read a book cover to cover. I'll just be honest. You don't have time to, it's so much information. So to have a resource where, like on Picmonic, where you can go on, search your textbook, search for the chapter that you're in, and kind of just summarize the information, would have been very, very helpful to me to have.
For some, because I think there's probably some people on here today who aren't even familiar with Picmonic. I would love to hear you describe what is Picmonic in your absence.
Picmonic is a great resource for nurses, especially when you are, heading into nursing school, or specifically while you're in nursing school. I think it's a great kind of addition to what you are learning in class. So let's say you're in your OB semester and you learn about placenta previa, and you're like, this is kind of weird, I don't quite understand this. You can go on to Picmonic, search placenta previa, and then they have little like story times basically to help give you like a funny, creative way to remember information, which is totally how I taught myself in nursing school. Was like, if I needed to remember calcium channel blockers for pharmacy, the ending for calcium channel blockers is dippine. And I would say, like, that's like dipping my cookie in milk, and milk is calcium. And so I use these like creative ways to remember things, but Picmonic does that for you. So you don't have to necessarily come up with a million stories, because you come up with a million stories that are fun and creative and just help you retain information in a creative way, which I think makes you retain it long term.
That's great. Well, I love your explanation of it. And, I'd simplify it to, it's these visual mnemonic cartoons, but, for any topic that you're struggling to remember, Picmonic has a quick video that you can watch, a quiz you can take, and then really intelligent software to help you make sure you're reviewing the right information at the right time, long term. But the idea of the books, because people are
that is a very short, simple, perfect answer.
I've had to explain it a few times.
I can imagine.
So we've got some questions coming in, and I encourage everyone watching today, everyone that's joined in, please feel free to write in some questions. We're going to get to those in just a little bit. But before we do, I think the NCLEX, like for medical students myself, it was studying for boards. It was studying for this, step one. It's a beast of an exam, and it's really stressful thinking about it. So how, it sounds like you started doing questions pretty early in your journey, but as far as going into your second year, were there things that you changed as far as how you studied, how you prepared, and then even leaning into NCLEX specifically? Was there any specific advice that you want to share with the audience today regarding kind of that aspect and finishing up the second semester and taking NCLEX?
Yeah, I would say my second year, more specifically my final semester of nursing school, was when I really, really buckled down and created like a study kind of plan for myself, in the sense of, what am I going to do this semester? It's like, it's crunch time. I've got 4 months left before I'm going to take my NCLEX. What can I do now to make sure that I can take my NCLEX right when I graduate? And that's another little piece of advice I always give people is, if you're preparing for the NCLEX throughout your entire journey in nursing school, take the test right as soon as you can and just get it out of the way. All that information that you've just learned is fresh in your head. You've spent the last 3-4 years learning this content. And so don't take 2, 3, 4, 5 months off to where now that information starts to get cobwebs on it and you don't use it as much. So my last semester, I really sat down and created a study plan. Like, okay, 4 or 5 days a week, I'm going to sit down and do X amount of questions. I'm going to go back. I'm going to be reviewing stuff from my first semesters. Content that I struggled with, I'm going to focus on. I really hit up the med surgeon is kind of the biggest chunk of the NCLEX. So I really try to focus a lot of my attention on what the majority of the questions were going to be, because, you may get a weird question here and there, but don't invest all your time in doing those kind of niche weird questions. And then take your NCLEX as soon as you can once you graduate. If you've been prepping for it, you don't need to necessarily wait and spend months after you graduate, preparing, because you already have. I took my NCLEX 10 days after I graduated nursing school. I was the first one in my class to take it. Everyone thought I was crazy because they all signed up for these different NCLEX prep things, and no shame on people that do that. If that's what makes them feel prepared, then do that. But I feel like for the majority of people, if you're prepping all through nursing school, you're gonna be fine.
That's great. Love it. So I see a lot of questions coming in that we're going to get to in just a few minutes. But before we do, you know, I don't want to ignore kind of this general aspect of, yeah, the academia is super difficult, right? Learning and just retaining the information is a beast.
Yes.
But beyond that, you got to maintain some level of balance and sanity. So can you talk a little bit about and share, you know, different things that you might have done to find out that kind of school life, family, friends balance?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's one thing that we should all be working on, and I'll admit it's still something that I continually have to work on, because it can be very hard in nursing school to just, you're investing so much of yourself into school that sometimes you can lose sight of, you know, that self-care aspect of taking care of yourself outside of nursing school.
Right.
So really my family is what held me accountable, and, you know, going out to a family dinner and pulling me away for a little bit. Or I even, you know, I'd go to the gym and I'd put my study cards on the elliptical. It was like, okay, well, this is self-care, but I still feel like I'm being productive and learning something at the same time. But really just, you almost have to force yourself or plan it in your schedule, just as if you'd plan to take a 4-hour block and go study or whatnot. You almost have to plan your self-care. Like, okay, tonight I'm going to be done by 8 p.m. I'm going to take a bath and light a candle and eat a pint of Ben & Jerry's while I binge watch my Netflix shows. But you need to do that and get your mind away from nursing school, because you're more productive when you're taking care of yourself. If you're constantly 100% full force in the academics all the time, you start to not retain that information as well, because your mind is just like never getting a break. It's just like when you're running, you gotta you gotta like prepare for a marathon, or, you know, take a little break and then you can get back to running. And same thing with this, is you got to give your mind that break and do something that refuels you,
Right.
so you can get back and be a better nursing student, be a better nurse. And that applies to, you know, anything in life, essentially.
It's so easy to get caught up in the mindset that, like, I have more to do, I need to keep studying. But the reality is it's easy to burn out. It is a marathon and you can't always just go. So you got to pull back, you got to take time, you got to sleep, you got to eat healthy, you got to, you know, take those breaks. And I think even calendaring the breaks in is something a lot of students that we talk to, it's, you know, whether they live by their calendar in that sense. And it's like, all right, by 10 o'clock, I'm turning off. And on Saturday, I'm taking it, I'm having that 6-hour break, but you can do that. And it's more necessary than a lot of us think when we're going through the process. So.
Oh, for sure. And you're going to be more productive if you're taking that time for yourself than you would if you're just constantly full force all the time.
Absolutely. All right. So we, in the next couple of minutes, are going to shift over, and I want to there are a ton of questions that are coming through. So I want to give an opportunity to you and everyone who's joined in today to ask questions, get those answered, give you guys an opportunity. But before I do, you know, coming back to this idea of 5 must-dos for your second year of nursing school, how would you summarize some of these thoughts that you shared in the last 20 minutes?
I would say, to kind of summarize it, your first year of nursing school, you're really just building that foundation. And your second year is your year to grow, your year to look into what you want to be doing as far as your future, discovering your nursing niche, so to speak. Another must do is just remembering that this is a marathon. Your journey in nursing school is a marathon. It's not a sprint. At times it's going to feel like a sprint. You're going to be out of breath the whole time. But just as far as your academics, like really treat preparing for the NCLEX like a marathon, not a sprint. When you're in your second year, don't forget to go back to your first year, review the content that you learned previously, so that way you could keep that solid foundation going. In your second year, final semester, really consider doing a study plan of how you plan to prepare for the NCLEX. And like incorporate that into your final semester.
Okay.
So that way, when you're done with nursing school, you're ready to take the NCLEX. You spent all that time preparing. You don't need to take another 6 months off. Like, let's just get her done, take the test, and get your RN and start job searching. And you know, that's the ultimate goal through all this, is to become an RN. So.
Well, I love it, and I think it's phenomenal advice all the way across the board.
Thanks.
So what we're going to do is we're going to jump in, and I'm just going to read some of these questions off, and we're going to give it Ashley. We're going to rapid fire a lot of this, but
Okay.
this marathon analogy is really encouraging, especially during times where you're really struggling. Thank you so much. So a little appreciation. I'm a third semester nursing student from Michigan. How do you prepare for nursing job interviews? Best questions to think about and prepare to answer. Good question.
That is a great question. So a lot of nursing interviews are going to be situationally, behaviorally based questions. So it's not going to be like, tell me your strengths as a nurse or as a, you know, as a coworker. It's going to be questions like, tell me about a time in which you had a disagreement and what was that disagreement and how did you handle it? So the best way to prepare for interviews is to practice those types of situationally based questions. And remember, if you're not a nurse already, these questions don't have to be answered in like as if you were a nurse. They could be, you know, your experience as a bartender, as a server, as a daycare person. So look up online like situationally based interview questions. There's a lot of great resources out there, and then pick a friend, have them read these questions to you, and you have to answer them off the top of your head. And I think the more practice you have, the better, you know, prepared you're going to feel for your interview.
That's good. That's good. One of the questions, did you disconnect from social media at certain points in time, either while you were studying for an exam or during like NCLEX prep, or did you ever disconnect?
I guess I never disconnected in the sense of like, I'm going to put my phone away for 2 weeks, but I would force myself to put my phone down or, you know, TV off or whatever, because this is a distraction. And if I have a 2-hour period where I have time to study, I want to make the most of that 2-hour period. So that way I'm not like pushing my studying further and further, you know, oh, now I got to do another hour because I just spent the last 15 minutes scrolling the gram. So just even, you know, putting your phone away and setting a timer of like, okay, I'm not going to touch my phone for the next, you know, 30 minutes. And that's going to be my time. That was something that was very helpful for me to kind of hold me accountable and not get distracted.
No, that's great. And if you guys aren't familiar, there's a technique called the Pomodoro technique, which is basically all about this time blocking, you know, spend 45 minutes studying, spend 15 minutes break. And there's some apps and websites that actually can help you with disconnecting you, forcing you to disconnect from social media so that you can't play while it's actually study time.
Yep.
Another question, any website, apps, books you recommend for NCLEX in general?
That's great. Well, obviously Picmonic. Picmonic's been great. I think one that I used in nursing school, I think it's still around, is the NCLEX Mastery app. Trying to think what else. Like I said, I didn't really use books. I know nrsng.com, actually their nursing.com now has some great resources for nursing students as well. I'm trying to think. That's pretty much it. I'm kind of like so out of that, you know, I took the NCLEX like over 5 years ago. So it's like, I don't think of, oh, like, look at this, you know, resource or whatever. But yeah, those are kind of the top ones that come to my mind.
If you guys haven't heard of nursing.com, go check it out. They've got some great videos and great content as well. So I agree with that. A really good question given the current state of the world we live in. So the comment from one of our attendees, I wish I could spend hours in a group at Starbucks or that my gym was open. Any thoughts for those of us teaching ourselves home alone because of COVID? So this whole online learning solution and staying sane while being remote.
Yes, that's hard. I feel for you guys because I obviously wasn't in that situation in nursing school, and I can only imagine not having different outlets for studying. Now you're like forced, you're trapped. But I would utilize the friends that you've met, or even if maybe it's your first semester and you don't quite know anyone, try to connect with someone. Say, hey, anyone want to do a Zoom meeting or, you know, FaceTime, whatever, and study with me? Or even one thing I did in nursing school was I created like a chat room, and I would invite all my all my nursing school peers on there, like, hey, I'm going to be rapid firing questions for people to answer if you want to come on and like answer questions that I'm, doing, making for this test. And it was a way for me to study, but it was also a way for them to study. And it was a way for us to kind of connect. So it's just finding a creative solution to connecting while you're still at home. Maybe even Uber Eats or something, like a Starbucks drink if you don't want to go out or go to the drive-through, come back, like all your girlfriends, guy friends, whatever, get a drink, sit down, make it a fun game to study, and just be as creative as you can.
No, that's great. So a couple questions, and they're pretty thematic, so I'm not going to read it word for word, but the idea is people trying to understand how much time were you spending studying either a day or a week? How did you know how much time you needed to put in?
I would say I got this advice from my like nursing academic counselor before I started. I was like, how much time am I going to be investing in this nursing school thing? Like, I still got to work and all this. Like, what should I anticipate? And they said, anticipate that it's going to be a full-time job for school, just your clinicals and your courses. And then on top of that, you're going to be studying when you go home. So if you anticipate 40 hours a week for your clinicals and you're going to classes, then you're probably investing another 20 hours a week at home of just writing your assignments and studying and all that, but also just kind of slide this in off topic but on topic, utilize your time at school as well. So sometimes you have this like 45-minute downtime between classes, and I saw so many people that would socialize and hang out, which I think it's important to have that to a certain extent too. But if you've got 45 minutes to like just type up your little quick, introduction to a paper or something, like just get it done. So that way you're utilizing your time effectively. So it doesn't feel like you're spending all your time on nursing school while you're at home as well, because you're utilizing that time when you're actually in school.
That's great. Another question, there's a couple questions about content specific areas. So everything from, how did you study for med surge to, was there a specific tool or resource you used for pharm or patho?
I'm trying to think what I used for patho and pharm. I don't have like a specific resource, but like I said, kind of towards the beginning, if people missed it, is if once you find a method of studying that works for you, just go with it. Like if it's working, then just go with it. If you find that flashcards are your jam, then do flashcards. If you find that, having study groups are your jam, then do it. And I used to, like I said, I used to write my own types of questions, and that's how I would study content. And I used to say, I'm not going to do it this test because it takes so much time. But then it worked. Like if I did it, I like could really like just solidify the knowledge in that content that I was learning. And so that's how I would do it from patho to med surge to pharm, is I would write my own questions and utilize resources with questions. And that's what I did. It worked, and I would go for it. And every time I would try to veer away from that, I wouldn't do as well on my exams.
Yeah. Well, when you find what works for you, stick with it. And I think a lot of people get overwhelmed with the amount of different tools and resources there are. So try and find something that's in a sense comprehensive, that it can cover you from day one to NCLEX and beyond.
Yes.
So getting a couple questions about Picmonic and some different things there. Feel free to just in general, since we're going to wrap this up in the next couple of minutes. If anyone has any questions, feel free to write into feedback@picmonic.com, or just go to the picmonic.com website. You'll see a little chat widget. We've got a small team, most of us based out of Phoenix, Arizona as well. But we're here to help you guys along your journey. So a few more questions for Ashely. I've just got to read this. Ashely, I have to sign off now, back to studying, but I wanted to say you were so amazing, a boss mama to Callie, and an inspiration to us all. Thank you for being such a great nursing role model.
Thank you, and good luck studying.
So again, there's just so many questions in here. I apologize, we're not going to be able to get to them all today. But Ashely, if people want to reach out to you or want to follow you, how do they find you?
The best way, if you have questions for me, is go to my Instagram. It's just Ashley Adkins RN, and shoot me a message on there or comment on one of my most recent photos. That's the best way for me to see what people are asking. And I get a lot of people that message me. So a lot of times if I'm getting a question consistently, I tend to make a YouTube video on it because it's hard to respond to hundreds and hundreds of people asking the same question. Yeah. I'd rather just make a video. So if you go to my YouTube channel, Ashley Adkins RN, I've made hundreds of videos of anywhere from more educational content, like how to interpret EKGs, to that more emotional side of nursing that people don't talk about much, like how to deal with a dying a dying patient, or how to talk to family members when a patient's dying, and kind of those tougher aspects of nursing that aren't necessarily taught in nursing school.
Yeah. So your Instagram one more time.
Ashley Adkins RN.
Ashley Adkins RN.
My name, I don't know if they can see my name, but my name that's on the screen.
If you guys hover Ashley's picture, you can probably see her name, but Ashley Adkins RN Instagram. And for everyone who took time out of your busy days to join us, we know you're busy, so we really do appreciate your time. Ashley, thank you so much for joining. Before we wrap up, there are two things we need to do. First off is we are going to draw a raffle winner. So drum roll for a raffle winner. We hopefully have a Kristen Davis here today. So Kristen, congratulations. Picmonic is hooking you up with some free time. We will send you an email after the fact. And Ashley is graciously hooking everybody up with a 30% off promo code. So if you're interested, you can go to picmonic.com. You can sign up for free, but if you want to subscribe to get all the content and all the features, over 15,000 questions, you can learn Picmonics instead of just reading your textbooks. A lot of great things there. How do they get hooked up with this discount, Ashley?
It should be coming in your email right after this, or there is a promo code that you could go use if you're anxious and want to get it right now.
That promo code is also Ashley Adkins RN. So
there's a theme here.
Ashley Adkins, ADKINS RN. Ashley Adkins RN if you want to subscribe for 30% off to any Picmonic subscription. Otherwise, we appreciate you guys greatly for joining us. Nursing is a beast of a journey, so good luck. Stay strong. You guys are going to do fantastic. Ashley, we at Picmonic always appreciate you. Thank you for spending time with us today. Any last thoughts before we check off?
I thank everyone for coming on here. I love hearing from you guys personally, and just, I want to, just like Picmonic, be a resource for you through your nursing school journey. And so I hope that you guys found some of this information helpful.
You're amazing. Stay safe, everyone. We love you guys. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.
Yes. Bye.